to the show. Glad to have you with us on this Wednesday. Sean Stein's with you. Bryan Driskell from Breakdown.com is here. Vince DeDario is here for some reason. I don't even know what he's doing back there right now. He told me we were talking off the air. I said, you part of this first segment? You in, you out? What are you doing? He said, I'm leaving, but here he is. He's still looking at me right now on the YouTube side.
It's trying to keep you on your toes, Sean Stiers. And
I'm certainly happy about it. I haven't done a show with Vince in a while.
Well, and that's the thing. I figure, I haven't seen Bryan on the show in a long time, and it needs to happen.
That's right.
It needs to happen.
Vince is hanging out at Four Winds Field tonight. There's a Penn High School baseball game, actually a doubleheader, JV and varsity out there. Who's Penn playing tonight, Vince?
New Prairie, and this is a big game.
Didn't they just play last night?
So, yes. It's been a minute since you and I both coached in the NIC, but they only have 8 members now. And so they do a home and away series each week with each school. So yesterday was the home game for Penn. They lost 5-0. And then today is New Prairie's home game, and it's being hosted here at Four Winds. And so it's for the conference, like literally for the conference. New Prairie entered the series with 2 losses. Penn had 0, and then with New Prairie's win last night, if they win tonight, obviously they'll both have 2, but then New Prairie has the head-to-head, and they will have control of the conference championship. So big game tonight.
All right.
The Kingsmen and the
NIC
Cougars.
Baseball update, championship update, live from Four Winds Field. Vince will be out there bundling up by the time things are all said and done tonight. It is chilly once again.
Not upset that I'm in the press box.
I bet.
It's windy. That's what's killing me. It's the wind.
Yeah, man. I know. Don't get me started. Don't get me started on this. It's the middle of May and I'm wearing a hoodie. So
I know, right?
It is what it is.
If I could move somewhere where I could wear jeans and a hoodie year round, I would move to that place.
Would you really?
That's my favorite time, like that late fall, before when it starts to change, like late October.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't need the Seattle feel 24/7, 12 months a year.
I get that.
I've got a good buddy who actually lives in Seattle. He's been there for a long time, more than 30 years at this point.
Oh, wow. He lasted that long. Good for him.
Yeah, but
Seahawks fan, they just got themselves a good running back. Yeah, that's for darn sure.
He's not like huge sports guy, but he gets into the whole, anytime the Seahawks are in the playoffs and stuff like that, I'll always hear from him about it. So he's more a music guy. That he kind of moved there for the music scene back in the 90s and that kind of stuff, kind of worked behind the scenes in the industry and that kind of thing. So let's talk a little Notre Dame football recruiting. What do you say? It's been a big couple of weeks for the Fighting Irish. They've been hot on the recruiting trail. They picked up 5 commitments now in less than 2 weeks. 5-star offensive tackle Olu Olubobola became the 5th player to commit to the Irish in less than 2 weeks yesterday. I think I said that right, didn't I, Bryan?
That's how I've been saying it. So if you're not saying it right, then I'm not saying it right.
I think I took it from you. So,
yeah. So if it's wrong, then it's my fault. Great. That's how we're starting the show today. All right, let's roll, son. I'm ready. I'm ready. Right. Okay.
Let me ask you this, because before we talk about him specifically, we get the announcement dates for these guys. They still, set up, whether it's in the gym or, wherever it is, they put up, and they've got the hats out in front of them and all that kind of stuff. They make the announcement publicly. A lot of the insiders like yourself, what's going to happen. You kind of get tipped off in advance what's going to happen. Again, we've talked about it. You wait and you let them make their announcement. Mm-hmm. How many of these announcements are actually like everyone's actually in the dark about what's going to happen? Like how many are actually, like the decision is quote unquote being made while the announcement is actually going on?
It's very rare.
That's what I thought.
And the only time it happens is when they just don't tell any of the coaches beforehand. So like, for example, there was when Jackson Coleman committed to Notre Dame, he had let the Notre Dame staff know. He said, "Hey, look, I'm doing this, but I'd like to have it kept quiet until I commit." And of course, within an hour of him committing, there's like 8 crystal balls and projections of him to Notre Dame.
Uh-huh.
And it's not coming from the Notre Dame coaches. It's that the coach that the teams that he didn't commit to that he told. So I guess from what I was told, the Notre Dame coach said, "Well, if you want that to happen, then you should probably not tell the teams that that you're being recruited by that you're committing. And he's like, I already did that. I already called him, which is the right thing for the young man to do.
Right.
Problem is,
So they're not finding
those
out
coaches then go call the recruiting services and say, yeah, this kid's going to Notre Dame. And then they go 87 people put in crystal balls 5 minutes before he commits and act like, look, I got my prediction right. So it's an unfortunate deal, but it's rare. When Emil Wagner committed, that's probably the last one that I was like, wait, what? We were doing a show and we weren't even, it wasn't our right. He was going to pick Kentucky. We thought he was going to pick Kentucky. Like that was a pretty big one. That one. And then the only other one between now and then where it was a surprise the day of was Mad Faramo. Now, when he finally announced for Notre Dame, we knew that was going to happen that morning. But like the night before, we all thought it was going to be USC.
Wow.
It rarely happens that way where we don't have an idea where it's going to go. Somebody just said Kingston's was unknown. No, it wasn't. We just didn't say anything. We knew what he was doing. We just didn't say anything.
Right.
But it's rare. I think the last two for me were Mad Faramo and where it was like last minute you found out, and then probably Emil Wagner. Like when he committed to Notre Dame, we were live on a show. I think, Vince, I don't know if I was doing it with you or not. I might have been doing it with Ryan Roberts, and the chat just starts going crazy. Like, oh my gosh, Emil Wagner's committed to Notre Dame. We're like, what? No. Like, thought it was done. Thought he was going to Kentucky. So it doesn't happen very often, but it'll happen from time to time.
Okay. Interesting. I just curious, because again, it's like you guys are dialed into it much differently than people on the outside. I was just curious, like how many coaches are actually kept in the dark right down to the wire. It makes sense that you do it the way you're talking about, though, because you don't want the kid to sit there and actually make the announcement, and then everyone else is, sort of all the other coaches are finding out live, without the guy. I think you can respect the player would actually let those coaches know, that he's going to make another decision.
Yeah, a teenager getting punished for doing the right thing because adults have to, go ruin it for him. And in that fun, the world we live in now, it's wonderful.
Oh yes. Well, let's talk about Olu Olubobola. Let's spin it back around to him. 6'6", 295 pounds from Jersey City, New Jersey. This is the fifth straight 5-star tackle that Notre Dame has signed in a class. Give us some of your thoughts on Mr. Olu Olubobola.
Well, he's reminds me a lot of the Joe Waltz, the Ronnie Stanleys, the Gerby Lamberts, guys that come to Notre Dame 6'6", 285-ish, 290-ish. He's listed at 295 now. He was like 270 as a junior. Whether he's 280, 285, 295, I don't know. I just know he still has a lot of room to get big. Those guys that you look at and you're like, Gerby Lambert was like 6'6", 290 when he committed Notre Dame. Now he's like an easy 6'6", 330 and doesn't look like fat at all. He's just a big kid. And Joe Walt was that way. I think he was 270 when he committed Notre Dame. He was 305 by his freshman year, 325 by his junior year, and he looked great. He fits that mold, Sean. He's also a very athletic kid, exceptionally long arms. I mean, there was one camp he went to where I don't know how accurate this is, like to the T, but he measured in with 36-inch arms, which is just exceptionally long. If they're off, it's like, okay, 35 and a half. That's still going to be top 3 at the combine when he goes to the NFL scouting combine. Exceptional length, loads of athleticism. He's real nimble, real balanced, good change of direction, powerful young kid, real heavy hands. He's raw technically. That's an area where he's going to need a lot of help, or not to help, but a little bit of time. A lot like Gerby was. I mean, Vince, we saw Gerby as a freshman in practice, and like, this kid's got all the talent in the world. He just has to learn how to play offensive line. And within a year, a year later, he's starting at right guard for Notre Dame, and now going to his redshirt sophomore year, he's poised to be a potential All-American player. And that's kind of the track that I see Olu is. He's going to probably need a year to really learn the game. He still has a senior year. But when it starts to click, he's got an elite talent. There's no doubt about it.
It's hilarious that you say that this guy has room to grow still, physically, because the show card that I used on YouTube is like him. It looks like they're standing like outside the locker room, like getting ready to run on the field or something. So it's like him towering over like these two, like basically average high school football players.
Yeah,
it's just comical how much bigger he is. Than just your run of the mill.
And he's just
high school player,
big. Like like there's some guys that you see some of these linemen that are like 315, and they're like, dude, when you stop playing football and go on a real diet, you're going to get down to 250, like no problem. This is one of those kids. He's just big. I mean, he doesn't look like when you think of a big offensive lineman, you think he's big around the middle, the midsection where, where we're too big, where all of us could stand to lose a little bit. That's not him. He's just broad shouldered, big hands, big feet. And Gerby was that way. And it's a natural growth. It's, you get into a Notre Dame strength program, Notre Dame nutrition program. And just like that, he's going to be 315, 320. Like Will Black was like 285, 290 when he signed. I think he was like 305 as a true freshman. Now he's up to 316. And he still looks thin when we saw him this spring. And some of those kids just have those big bodies. And some kids, unfortunately, like an Emil Wagner, it's very hard to even get up to 300 pounds. And then when they get up to 300 pounds, they lose some of that explosiveness. They lose their athleticism because their body's just not ready to handle that. Whereas a guy like Olu has that. And he's got the power to match. He's still athletic, very talented player, and plays against one of the better leagues in the country. I mean, that New Jersey Catholic League is outstanding. I mean, they constantly send kids to the high-level Division I football. So he's going to be battle-tested from the same high school as the Adamiola twins. Brandon Wimbush are from that high school as well. So very, very big pickup for Notre Dame, who's getting back into New Jersey in this class, which I'm a big fan of. This is now the second New Jersey commitment, and they're hoping to get another one here in a couple weeks.
Brian, one of the things I just follow, because you guys are deep into recruiting. You follow everybody and everything, and I'm more of a cursory recruiting guy. I always like to know who the finalists were, like who were in it for him, and what does that list of schools look like? Because that always kind of tells me what kind of. I know he's a 5-star, and a great get, and all those, but like who else was in the mix for this guy?
I mean, the offer list is everybody. It's Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, all LSU, all those schools. His final three, it came down to Notre Dame, Miami, and Texas A&M, which right now are the three hottest teams. In the country right now from a recruiting standpoint. Three of the hottest teams in the country, I should say. I don't know if they're the three hottest. You could argue Notre Dame and Texas A&M are the hottest. Miami's in the conversation, certainly. But those were the final three schools. And I mean, this is the one that hit quick, Sean. They didn't offer him till March 19th.
Wow.
He got offered less than 2 months ago. And we could have a whole show on, why they waited till March 19th. A big part of it just came down to he didn't really hit the recruiting process hard. And I think his personality, he's a quiet kid. He's very thoughtful. And I think, maybe there was a thought he wasn't as interested. Coming out of the visit, my sources were like, I don't know if we're going to get him, because they're trying to read his body language, but he's just a very stoic kid. And come to find out, the whole weekend, he is locked in. And one of the things I loved, you guys appreciate this, his things that he fell in love with about Notre Dame had nothing to do with like what they were saying to him. The whole weekend, he's watching Joe Rudolph, and he's watching especially Marcus Freeman and how they interact with other people. Because his big thing with him and his family is like, look, I want to go somewhere. They're going to have my back. They're going to they care about developing me on and off the field. Well, of course, you're going to get pitched all these things as a recruit. But let me watch how you're interacting with your players. Let me watch your interacting. And the more he was around Marcus Freeman and Joe Rudolph, he felt that there was just this genuineness of Notre Dame where the things they're telling me, I'm seeing them live out with players that are already here. And then talking to the other players and kind of getting that sense. And that's really what moved it, even though they didn't think they really crushed that visit. In fact, they did.
Interesting. That has to come into play when you look at the fact that this now, with him committing, it's the third time in the last 4 years that they have had 5 top 100 commits in the same cycle after going a decade prior to Marcus Freeman without having that kind of without having one class like that.
And there's more to come. There's a lot of top 100 kids left on the board. We'll talk about another one here in a second. But like, this is just the bar that Marcus Freeman is raised at Notre Dame. We found out that there is actually a different aisle that you can shop down in the recruiting trail. It's one that requires hard work, and you to care more about recruiting than golfing and things like that. But sorry, I couldn't help myself. But no, it also, we can't deny that NIL is not playing a role either. And Notre Dame was basically
very
fighting with one hand behind their back for a long time because other schools were paying kids and they weren't. Well, and Vince, you and I talked about this in the show when NIL first came out. So look, I don't like the pay for play thing, but make no mistake, this will help Notre Dame. Now that this is legal and Notre Dame can do it, like, don't think that the Notre Dame boosters aren't going to do what they need to do to be supportive. And it also too is, it speaks to the faith they have in Marcus Freeman, because smart business people aren't just going to park their money to a coach that they don't believe in. And that plays a big role as well.
Yep, absolutely. David Folorunsho, defensive lineman from Chicago. He commits. He's supposed to commit on Friday. I don't know if this was maybe what you were alluding to a second ago.
Yep.
Notre Dame, one of the finalists, though. Give us some backstory on kind of where things are, how things got to the point they are with Folorunsho.
So David is an interesting player. He was a bit of a late bloomer, really had a breakout junior season. He's now the number 9 player in the country by 247 Sports. At the turn of the year, I don't know that he was a 3-star. He wasn't a guy that a lot of people were on. As his film got out, his head football coach is Tommy Zbikowski. So obviously he's a Chicago kid, goes to St. Patrick. The thing I respect about what Coach Zbikowski's done is there has been no push to Notre Dame from what I'm told. It's just been more about like, I'm going to help you with the process. You got to pick the school that's best for you. Notre Dame might have been best for me, but you got to pick what's best for you. Notre Dame was the big leader early on, and then he kind of blew up. And then Miami comes calling, and Texas A&M and Georgia and Michigan and all these big-time schools start to come. And he goes on these visits. You're getting big NIL offers. And for a time there was a lot of people worried that, hey, Notre Dame's kind of maybe falling behind. Coaching staff did a good job of staying the course and saying, hey, look, our message is our message. Let's let him go on those visits. And then Notre Dame got him back in April and for a real quick one-day visit. And then he came back a week later with his mom, and that was a really big visit. And they were able to kind of make sure he understood what Notre Dame has to offer. His final 5 guys is Notre Dame, Michigan, Notre Dame, Miami, Georgia, Texas Tech, and Michigan. This is really a Notre Dame versus Miami battle, and it's been that way for the last month. Okay. Is really what it came down to. And obviously the last time we had one of these, Miami won that battle, getting Justin Scott. Now Notre Dame is trying to turn the corner a little bit on this one and say, hey, we're going to start getting some of these big boys out of Chicago. And David Folorunsho, who's been a primary target. He's another one that was a late offer, though. He didn't get offered until the new coaching staff on defense came on board. Because, again, he didn't really blow up until after his junior year. And so this is one of those ones that's been a sort of a Charlie Partridge one. It's not one where it's like Al Washington did a lot of work to get you here. Now you've got to finish the deal. We talked about it similarly with Aiden O'Neal. And so this is an opportunity for Charlie Partridge to once again show that, hey, I can recruit at a high level at a place like Notre Dame.
Feels like, when you talk about the Notre Dame-Miami battle, feels like we're going to see a lot more of those considering the way that Cristobal, wants to, his shape for the program in the trenches and all that kind of stuff.
And agree completely. Also, you're seeing more of these Notre Dame versus Miami battles because Miami is trying to recruit nationally. And Notre Dame is like, we're going to go down to Miami and take kids.
Yeah.
Not O-line for you, Sean, but like obviously Zayden Gamble was a guy that Notre Dame got that Miami wanted, that Florida wanted. Julius Jones Jr. is a guy that Notre Dame is pushing for, that Miami also wants, Oregon wants. So Miami under Mario is getting back to the way Miami used to be, which is we're going to recruit nationally. People forget that 1988 Miami team had some Chicago kids on it, just like the 1988 Notre Dame team had some South Florida kids on it.
Sure.
And Miami is a national brand, and Mario Cristobal is bringing that back. He's bringing back that we'll go anywhere, any place to get the kids that we want. And Notre Dame is doing the same thing. And Miami is also a very good academic school. And he's using that. And of course, they've got a good NIL package as well. So you're going to see a lot more of these Notre Dame-Miami battles in the recruiting trail. And hopefully Notre Dame can win more of them than they lose. And so far early on in Freeman's tenure, Miami won more of those battles. The last couple of years, Notre Dame's winning more of those battles, but it's definitely been a lot of back and forth. I like where Notre Dame is here, Sean. Obviously, we're going to find out here in a couple of days. I think
he's still committing on Friday.
Right, 4:30, I believe, is the time he's going to go live. Like where Notre Dame is at, this has been trending in a good direction for Notre Dame for a while, but obviously the final stretch is the key, right? That's the big key.
You kind of touched on it just now, but I read an article the other day about how Notre Dame is, number one, not afraid to go down into Florida, but number two, thriving in Florida. And that hasn't always been the case, but they're going where the talent is, right? I mean, this is something that Florida, go to Florida, get your guys. They're being successful down there.
Well, Notre Dame being successful in Florida requires, obviously, you have to have something to sell. I mean, you're not going to go down there and say, we got a great academic situation. And, oh, by the way, come up here into the cold and play 8-4 football. That's just not going to work, right? I mean, you're going to come up here. Like we've talked about this before. Think about if you're trying to recruit a running back from South Florida. Listen, bud, you could come up here and not start a single game your entire 4-year career and be a first-round draft pick. What do you mean, Coach? Yeah, that's exactly the story for Jadarian Price, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. And
right out of Texas, by the way.
Exactly. Denison, Texas. So you're able to go down there and you've got a great product to sell. You're playing for championships. Your guys are going to the NFL. And you've also got a coach that has the charisma to go down there and be successful. That's what Lou had. Lou could go down there and you'd have mom saying, you're going to go play for this man. Like, we've heard those stories, right? And Marcus Freeman has that.
Kelly gave up on Florida, right?
But you have to go find the right kids. And I think that was part of the issue that Brian Kelly had
but his aisle was,
right. Well, and then early on, some of the kids he brought in from Florida weren't exactly, probably shouldn't have brought them to Notre Dame. So his response, instead of like working harder to find the right kids, was like, well, screw it. We're just not going to recruit Florida anymore. And there are years where Florida's just not going to be real successful for Notre Dame. It's the cycle. It's the way it goes. Some years they're going to do great in Texas. Some years they may not get anybody from Texas. But I think it's about finding the right fits, right? Finding those high-level players that also fit what you're trying to do. I mean, and sometimes that's private school kids, which we see, for example, with Zayden Gamble, who's very much a Notre Dame fit. But John Gay III's not a private school kid, and he committed to Notre Dame. And Champ Mons is not a private school kid, and he committed to Notre Dame. They're from two outstanding high schools, but they're all they're high academic kids. They all come from families that understand the importance of being successful on and off the field. So that pitch is working for Notre Dame. And there's this notion you got to go to the private school kids. Well, I remember Joe Wilkins came from a single. Remember, his dad died when he was a real little. His dad passed when he was real little. Single mom from a real tough part of Florida. But why did he come to Notre Dame and thrive at Notre Dame? Because his mom understood and valued the things that Notre Dame values. So it's not about private versus public or whatever, poor, rich. It's finding families whose values fit with Notre Dame. And that's what they're doing. And they're doing it. And that's what you got to do that in Florida, especially those big states, because there are kids like that down there. You just have to fight for them.
Right.
And the previous staff had a head coach who didn't want to fight for him. And that's why they lost a lot of those battles. And also the product is better. It's the on the field product. The facilities are now as good as anybody in the country. And there's a track record of success on the field and in the NFL draft that makes Notre Dame a very difficult team to contend with. And now when you throw in the NIL package, because I'm not one of those people that's back down, it's like, well, Notre Dame's not paying players. Yes, they are, because that's the rules. And there's nothing wrong with it. And it just the whole package is there, and that's allowing them to really thrive.
Somebody actually believes Notre Dame's not paying players.
Well, there's people say, well, y'all won't admit that like, you're paying players. I'm like, I don't know that. And then there are some older Notre Dame fans that will talk to me and be like, well, they're not really getting into those bidding wars. I'm like, no, they're not getting into bidding wars. Like, they're not going to pay a kid. Like, if the only way to get you here is we got to pay you more than everyone else, that's not the kind of kid Marcus Freeman has really pushed to get here.
Right.
But I've also said, I joke, but they're also not getting Joey O'Brien because they gave him some Golden Corral gift cards. You know what I mean? Like, there's a happy medium here. They're competitive in NIL.
Right.
What they're not going to do is get a kid to say, Coach, I want to play for you, but this school offered me $1.3 million and you're only offering me 1.1. If you don't match, I'm not going to come play for you. I'm like, well, buddy, if this offer isn't good enough for you, then maybe that's the place for you. They've had those conversations before.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, it's about finding the right fits. And if you got to pay to get the right fit here, that's the rules that you have, and you get those kids, which is why Notre Dame doesn't have the same kind of turnover from year to year that other teams do. It's why they have most of their best players tend to come back. And that's why they're able to kind of roll and reload every year.
Jay Melvin has a question here in the chat for you, Brian. He says, Sean on Lucky Lefty the other night talked about how every Chicago Catholic school kid is not a Notre Dame kid. Is that just a Chicago thing, or is that a thing everywhere, New Jersey, New York, California, etc.?
Well, Sean's speaking of that because Sean's from Chicago and he knows a lot of those kids, and that's very true. That's true everywhere you go, and that's true for. I mean, you could go to the best private school in the Northeast, and there's kids who are Harvard fits and kids who aren't, and kids who go to, public schools. It just there's no cookie cutters anywhere. I went to private school my last 2 years, and there were people like me who were there because I came home from practice one day and the AD at the private school I transferred to was sitting on my parents' porch trying to convince them that, hey, this is why your kid should come play for us. I mean, that's the reason I went there. And we had two basketball players who were both 6'8", who were 4-year starters at NC State. They weren't there to get the good Christian education, and because we were there to play sports.
Right.
And then there's other kids that are there because it's a pathway to to get to the best education possible. That's always true. And that's why you have to be able to go to these schools, whether it's a Catholic school, whether it's a private school, public school, North, South, Midwest, West, whatever, and say, we're going to find the kids that fit this program. And there can be kids from the same high school that come from similar backgrounds, but just for whatever reason, one kid's a better fit here than another. And that's a key for Notre Dame. That's why you're not going to get every single Chicago kid. And Lou Holtz didn't get every single Chicago kid. You just got to find the kids that are going to be the right fits here. And that are going to, because if you don't do that, Sean, you don't have the same chemistry and culture you have, but also you're going to have a lot more turnover.
Mm-hmm.
If kids are coming here for the wrong reasons, when things don't go their way, they're going to bounce. So
Right.
It's really imperative that Notre Dame's find those kids that are willing to do the things and accept what Notre Dame is about, because you do have to go to class. You do have to put in that work. And if kids are only here for football, when that part's not going well and it's all about the academic piece and the culture piece, then they're going to bounce. And the way to keep the culture going and the program healthy is to make sure that when you're bringing them in the first place, that you're bringing in the kids that really fit the program and families that fit the program.
And then it goes back to what you were talking about with Olu Olubobola and, going to practice and observing how, Joe Rudolph and Marcus Freeman and the coaches are interacting with, like starting with that.
Right. And that's why the teams that are successful in recruiting consistently have that. You want to know why Mario Cristobal's doing well at Chicago or at Miami is because that's the vibe that he gives. It's not just about football. We all know Mike Elko. We had a chance to get to know Mike Elko when he was here. We know that he's someone who gives a about his players on and off the field. And so it's not just about the NIL and it's A&M. That's a guy that the players and families think he's going to care about my kid. So guess what? A&M's thriving. And the schools that have coaches that are genuinely that way, they're the ones that are really rising. Dan Lanning has some of that vibe that he gives off at Oregon as well. And that's why those coaches are really thriving in this NIL world, because now everybody can throw money at you. Now you have to find the right fit for you. You have to find someone that's going to give about developing your son on and off the field. And the coaches that are showing that and displaying that and care about that are the ones that are really taking off on the recruiting trail right now in this new era.
Bryan, real quick, where we are right now. We've talked about Olu Olubobola. We've talked about Folorunsho. In terms of remaining needs now for this 2027 class from where we are right now in the middle of May?
Well, they got to finish the offensive line class. I have a feeling that we're going to have I think the offensive line class is going to be done sooner rather than later. I think there's some things in the works that we're going to see some action here on a couple offensive linemen here real soon. Jackson Vaughn, they still have to finish off the DN class. Right now they have one defensive lineman. Hopefully they get David Folorunsho on Friday. And then you've also got Jackson Vaughn slated to commit on May 26th. He's looking at Notre Dame, Auburn, South Carolina, a couple of programs like that. Notre Dame is fighting there. They're in a good place there. And then, of course, you're going to have the summer visits in June that Notre Dame's going to have to finish. The Julius Jones Juniors, the Caden Henderson. So got to really hit a home run at linebacker. Need to really get Julius Jones Jr. That's a big one. And they're on the verge of a great D-line class, Sean. But right now they only have one committed. So it's about finishing with Abraham Cisse, finishing with Jackson Vaughn, finishing with David Folorunsho, and then being able to land another top interior player. So, they're trending towards another top 3 class, but they're going to have to get 8 to 10 more kids down here the stretch to do that, making sure you're getting a Leighton Von Brandt, making sure you're getting the Julius Joneses, and that's going to be the key. The finish is going to be the key. They're trending there. I think right now they're the number 3 class in the country on 247 Sports before they get David Folorunsho as a top 100 recruit. So it's about the finish, and that's going to be the key for Notre Dame.
Is the next big recruiting weekend like Irish Invasion, things like that would come up in June?
They're going to have 2 official visit weekends for the 27 class. That's going to be the 12th and the 19th. So the board is so small now of uncommitted players that there's only need for 2 weekends. Other schools have 5.
Gotcha.
They start in May. Notre Dame's going to have 2 because there's only going to be 5 to 6 uncommitted kids by then, just like last year. I think they went 8 of 9 last year on official visitors. 8 of the 9 signed. The only one that didn't, they basically passed on after Ian Premer committed. Then they didn't take that other tight end, Evan Jacobson. So that's kind of the strategy. 28 kids, Vince, will be this summer. So Irish Invasion will be the weekend before. That's more for the 28, 29 kids.
Gotcha.
The 27 kids are going to get finished up those 2 official visit weekends.
Bryan Driskell, irishbreakdown.com. If you hadn't heard, I think this is what is this? Is it the second or third Wednesday? Wednesday is recruiting day going forward with Bryan talking Notre Dame football recruiting. So a lot of good stuff that we got today. Tell everybody where to find all the premium juicy stuff, all the good stuff.
Boards.irishbreakdown.com. That's our premium message board. That's where we put all the stuff that we don't talk about in the show, that we put in our free articles. It's not on our podcast. Boards.irishbreakdown.com. You can sign up monthly or annual memberships. But of course, YouTube channel, Irish Breakdown, which you're watching now. If you like podcast platforms, you want to listen to where you're driving around, just type in Irish Breakdown. You'll find it, and you'll see You'll hear all the good stuff. We went off a little bit about USC and also the ACC today. So I had some rants today. So if you like a good rant, I had some things to say today. I got a lot off my chest. I think I lost about 50 pounds of stress today going off on my show earlier.
I've got some audio from Jim Phillips that we're going to have in rapid fire that from the press conference he did.
Yeah, let me hear those and bring me back on, and I'll have some fun. I enjoy him and Lincoln Riley are my two favorite targets right now.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Phillips has changed his tune slightly in
the
past few months.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah. Even though he said he's been consistent with the tune, it sounds like a different tune.
Publicly, he's been consistent with the tune. It was the stuff he's doing behind the scenes, but I think that's been rectified here as well.
That's right. All right. Thanks as always, Bryan. We'll talk to you again soon. Oh, happy birthday belated. I told you the other day, but Bryan just had a birthday.
Thanks, guys. So, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bryan Driskell, IrishBreakdown.com. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, speaking of Notre Dame and USC, Vince and I will talk about his favorite talk show host. That is coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. And it's not Bryan Driskell.
Dang it.
Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Sean Stiers, Vince DeDario, Bryan Driskell just checked out after talking some Notre Dame football recruiting with us. All kinds of good stuff still going on with recruiting right now, Vince. It's amazing just like how Marcus, like nothing has dropped off. The program just continues to ascend right now when it comes to the recruiting standpoint and everything else for that matter.
Oh, it's amazing that, you got these coaches and obviously Marcus Freeman specifically, but they have a job to be a coach and then it's another full-time job plus to recruit. And, that's why they need all of those guys in the recruiting office and why they need that new building so that everybody actually has an area to have an office and have a space and, all of those things. Because I can't even imagine trying to sift through the thousands of high school players that are out there to be early on these guys and do all these different things. And you hear all the different stories, right? You hear they're on these guys real early and they establish these relationships. And then completely on the other end of the spectrum is the last kid that just committed. They offered him a month ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And they were still.
That's what's amazing. Him, I think it was Jackson Coleman, like they just really haven't even been talking to him or, official visits for that long and just boom.
Yeah.
Short time. Here they are ready to rock.
It's wild, but Notre Dame's killing it on the recruiting trail. And it's fun to talk about classes that, are good and going to be, potentially top 5, top 3 or whatever they end up being. And it's a lot easier to win games when you keep when you keep just stacking these classes.
Yeah. That's fun to talk about. I don't know how much fun this next topic is going to be to talk about.
It's always fun. We'll make it fun.
Have you looked at the outline? Do you know what's coming next?
I did look at the outline. Yeah, okay. 100%.
I debated on this. Jesse and I touched on it for a minute yesterday because
yeah,
Vince's favorite talk show host, Colin Cowherd, stirring it up with the Notre Dame USC comments. And I debated because
I know you're not surprised.
Because I'm not surprised that he made the comments. He's gotten what he wants out of this, which is really the only reason he really says anything.
Correct.
It's aggregated everywhere. Like if you Google Cowherd, right, everything that comes up is the stuff that everyone's aggregated and rewritten. What he was talking about the other day in terms of Notre Dame USC, talking about how he says that the reason they're talking right now is because Notre Dame came crawling back, saying that Southern Cal has all the leverage right now. He says money is rolling in at USC. That's
what is he
quote from
talking
Cal.
about?
If money was rolling in, why would USC even care about playing this series?
Correct. Oh, it just look. Colin Cowherd he's a professional talk show host. Okay, he generally takes facts and then kind of like twists them to meet whatever narrative that he wants, right? Like, but these aren't even facts. Like he's literally making things up.
He's either making things up or has been straight up fed just a bunch of BS. I mean,
did he not read the article that we all read from the LA Times that said the donors and the sweet people are the ones that are clamoring for this to come back?
Yeah.
The money's not rolling in. They're threatening to take the money away.
Right.
Which is why USC came crawling back to these negotiations, not the other way around. Come on.
Exactly. And he says
it's embarrassing.
He says USC doesn't need another cold weather game in October, sandwiched between Ohio State and Indiana, Penn State, and Oregon. He says Notre Dame needs it because Notre Dame has discovered as the Big Ten has added Oregon, Washington, USC, and as the SEC has added Texas and Oklahoma, it becomes super conferences. And now because of NIL, even Vanderbilt and Indiana are good. So nobody wants to play Notre Dame. Those are Cowherd's talking points. Notre Dame has come crawling back. Nobody wants to play Notre Dame. I'm just going to, before you say anything else, I'll just add on kind of what you were just talking about. Because, again, like this is big, these become national talking points. And again, he's on our station, Sports Radio WSBT, every day. But I'll put this in terms that Cowherd can understand. Because, let me say this. Does anyone watch Euphoria because they think Sydney Sweeney's a great actress? Like, yes, no, maybe. No, because they're watching because sex sells. That's why you're watching Euphoria. That's why you're watching anything that Sydney Sweeney is in, because sex sells, and Colin Cowherd understands this. Colin Cowherd is the court jester, the carnival barker, trying to package the most mundane things in the most titillating way that he can. He will tell you that he'll look at the sky, he'll look at a blue sky, and tell you that it's cloudy and raining just so he can start a debate on it and so that he can get you to say his name, so mission accomplished. But the man, it's been proven time and again, the man has no regard for actual facts or truth. He's just trying to say things for the sake of driving whatever narrative that he wants to drive. He literally doesn't care if you agree or disagree with him, as long as you talk about it and you talk about him. He's made it an art form, and it's made him a millionaire. So, good for him. But it's all just talk show theater. He knows there's much more to the story, but he's willing to be Lincoln Riley and Jen Cohen's stooge for the sake of getting aggregated, re-aggregated, and it worked, because again, the Googles or searches are full of him right now. So here's what he knows, though, that he won't say into a microphone or in front of a camera, because it doesn't serve his purpose. Nobody's crawling back to anyone in all of this. These are two blue-blooded programs that have one of the richest and most historic rivalries in all of college football. Notre Dame is good for USC, and USC is good for Notre Dame. And together, they're good for each other's bottom line. They're good for each other's business. And if this series were to really go away permanently, it's probably worse for USC, because USC doesn't have the same kind of national profile as Notre Dame. So he can talk about Ohio State and Michigan and, all these, and, they don't need another cold weather game and all this kind of stuff. As we know, they're not playing them every year. USC is not playing those teams every year. Those are sporadic, and look at any USC schedule, where are the marquee games for them? Yeah, I mean, they've got a couple of them, but we've already seen USC come to the Midwest for those games and play at 11 a.m. Central Time kickoffs. Not quite high profile, like the same kind of high profile you're going to get against Notre Dame. And whether it's in mild weather in October in South Bend, there's also mild, crappy weather in November in Los Angeles. Nobody wants to talk about that. But Colin Cowherd knows USC stands to lose more of their identity than Notre Dame without Notre Dame involved, because their only other rival is there in Los Angeles, and nobody talks about USC and UCLA nationally. USC needs this from their national profile just as much as Notre Dame needs a game like this. Yeah, Notre Dame's schedule doesn't look the same without USC on it, but that doesn't mean that Notre Dame is desperate to get USC back on it. They both need each other. This is a mutual thing. There's a reason they played this game for more than 100 years.
100%. And it raises the profile of both teams when they play each other, because they're going cross country and they're doing all the things that brought this rivalry to the forefront in the first place. And so, I'm not going to sit here and say that Notre Dame doesn't benefit from playing USC, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that USC doesn't benefit from playing Notre Dame. And
right.
You can look at ticket sales, you can look at profile, you can look at whatever you want. And he's cherry picking the whole, schedule strength and all of these other things, saying, why would you sandwich a Notre Dame game in between, Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State and blah, blah, blah.
Because again, you're not playing them every year. Right. Yeah. That is this year. If all you're going to look at is the 2026 schedule, we've said it. I mean, I think that's part of the reason, that USC was basically looking for an out this year, because Lincoln Riley thinks that they're in this championship window. And if you look at this schedule, this year's specific Big Ten schedule is the toughest that USC will play so far in their time in the Big Ten.
Yep. And you will not get an argument out of me on that. They got a tough schedule this year. We're going to talk about their schedule here in a little bit, but their schedule's hard this year, no doubt about it. But that's cutting off your nose despite your face. because there are years where Notre Dame's schedule is harder than other years, right?
Right.
We all know that Alabama's coming up. We all know that Texas is coming up. Auburn is coming up. You know, the 12-year contract with Clemson, like all of these teams that, by the way, have you noticed an issue with Notre Dame scheduling teams? Because I haven't. They're not having any issue filling their schedule.
Well, and that's what's just, like him saying that Notre Dame is having because
That's
again,
ridiculous.
Because again, like all it takes is one Google search, Notre Dame
Right.
future schedules. That's literally all you have to Google, Notre Dame future schedules.
Yep.
It brings up that website that's got
Yep.
everyone's future schedules on there as far out as they go. And you look at what Notre Dame's got coming up. One, the fact that they, we're only 3 years removed from when they were playing a home and home with Ohio State. They played a home and home with Texas A&M. They've obviously played other home and, and they've got their, they just played Miami last year, but then you look at the fact that they've got Alabama, Texas, Michigan, Indiana, Florida, Auburn. They got a home and home with Arkansas. Again, people criticize the Wisconsin thing, but again, if you actually, did your diligence and went back and looked when they actually scheduled this series, the fact that Wisconsin was having more success at the time than Notre Dame was having on the field. Like, Notre Dame has got no problem scheduling.
No.
Look at their future schedules. It's
Right.
full of who's who in
Correct.
college football playoff teams.
Correct. And we'll also talk about the ACC here coming up. And I realize that Notre Dame has a contract with the ACC. They play 5 opponents every year, things like that. ACC ain't dropping Notre Dame anytime soon either, for the exact same reasons that we're talking about, because they bring in money. And so Notre Dame will not have a hard time putting its 12-game schedule together. That will never be an issue for Notre Dame. And so I don't even understand why people even use that as an argument piece, because there's no truth to it. The day after Notre Dame and USC came out publicly and said that they weren't going to continue the series, Notre Dame had a scheduled opponent in BYU, who is a national opponent, right? And then it took a month before USC came out and they're playing a regional opponent. Like, who's having trouble scheduling teams here? Not Notre Dame.
Exactly. Like you said, it's basically like you just broke up with your girlfriend and Notre Dame was right on the phone, hitting up the next hottie down the road that, like, that's going to do their strength of schedule a favor this year. Notre Dame.
Decaf says ND sells out ACC stadiums. You know what other stadium they
sell
out?
Stadiums everywhere.
The Coliseum.
Yeah.
That's the stadium that they sell out that USC can't figure out how to sell out. So that's why they're having this conversation again.
And that's what for him or for anyone to just completely overlook that. The fact that Notre Dame going to the Coliseum every other year is a huge moneymaker. That is the game that USC knows it will sell out every other year when Notre Dame is in town, whether it's November, September, whenever it happens to be. And, the whole premise that Cowherd came with is just backwards, like to say that Notre Dame is crawling back to USC, because both sides, both sides of this realize that there is great value in them continuing to play. This is not just Notre Dame. And like this report popped up that no negotiations have resumed, but based on everyone, like you talk to, like, they've never really stopped. Again, we talked about this the other day. They've been talking. It's just, I think, look at where we are. It's the middle of May. So a reporter from the LA Times, asks a couple of questions, and it's like, we're negotiating again. Well, there's, just because you're not on the phone for 90 days straight doesn't mean that you haven't had some conversations in the interim,
Right.
And again, like when you look at USC and the bottom line and what they need to fulfill, they want that Netflix game in Mexico if they can get it, because they can get more money from it, because they've got they need it to be a non-conference game. It can't be Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State. They need it to be a marquee team, and it can't be a Big Ten team, because if it's a Big Ten team, then the Big Ten has the rights to it. Fox has the rights to it, like because of their grant of rights, because of their TV contract. But if they can get their stack of cash, if Notre Dame is involved, because it's a marquee brand, Netflix wants these, big one-off events and stuff like that. That's why Netflix is interested. And USC, needs to have its own relevance outside the Big Ten footprint, and Notre Dame gives them an opportunity to do that.
Sean, are you trying to tell me that USC can't sell San Jose State, Fresno State, or Louisiana to Netflix for a big game? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's shocking, isn't it? It is just shocking.
USC
can't pull that off.
What is the world coming to? That will not bring in the big dollars from Netflix down in Mexico. It's wild.
I know. Because look, they're outside of Notre Dame. Look at what USC's non-conference philosophy has become. Because remember, it started a few years ago when USC was playing LSU, and Lincoln Riley was asked about it. And that's kind of where I think one of the first times that he talked about getting Notre Dame off the schedule. They're honestly like Ohio State and Michigan. Those two right now are like the only Big Ten teams who have really shown that they're willing to step outside the Big Ten and play somebody in non-conference games.
Yes, 100%. I mean, obviously Michigan's playing Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
We know Ohio State has had Notre Dame on the schedule recently.
Texas last year, and will play them again this year.
Yep, exactly. So they're absolutely not afraid of competition. And look, as much as I don't like either one of those schools, I will give them credit for the way they schedule their games. Unlike a certain other school that plays in Indiana in the Big Ten, buying out of any kind of competition in their non-conference.
Virginia. They didn't even want to play Virginia.
Like, come on. Like, Virginia is more well-known for their law school than they are for their football team. And you're buying out of that contract so that you can schedule Indiana State or whatever other non-conference, FCS team that you put on there. So I do respect Ohio State and Michigan for actually putting some non-conference games on there that people actually want to watch.
Right. Exactly. Decaf asks if Netflix is doing college football this season. They are not necessarily doing college football, but like similar to what Amazon and Duke just did with basketball.
Yeah.
Like they are doing some one-off games that are going to be at neutral sites, and that allowed Amazon Prime with an in to do some of those Duke basketball games, like in Las Vegas. And I think there was one in New York, and there was another one. What Netflix's sports strategy is, they want to do big events. They want one-off events. Like they started by doing the Christmas Day NFL games. They've done it for the last couple of years. They added Major League Baseball opening day. They had that Giants, who I can't even remember who the Giants were, was Giants-Yankees. They did Giants-Yankees. They're going to get the home run derby. I can't remember if they're getting the All-Star game or just the home run derby. Oh, they're getting the Field of Dreams game. And so what they would like to do is continue to do one-off events like that in other sports, like college football as well. And that's how the whole talks with USC began. Again, it's like, okay, USC, well, maybe instead of playing your game against Notre Dame in the Coliseum, you take it down to Mexico City. And USC was looking at that as a way around the Big Ten's current TV contract, just like Duke found a way around the contract that the ACC, the TV contract that they have with the ACC, by doing those one-off games with Prime. So Netflix is not going to get into, and I just actually saw a quote from the guy who runs Netflix on this last night. I think they're not going to get into, like big, like regular packages, whether it's the NFL or any other sport. They want big one-off type event games that they can do. And they view Notre Dame and USC as a big event that they can do if they can find a way to do it, outside of the parameters of the current TV contracts that either one of those schools, has with their current TV partners.
I get it. It makes sense. I mean, and there's a lot of people out there with Netflix accounts that would have no problem watching the game there. And so, you're going to run into people that don't want to pay for it, like Peacock, obviously, but that people need to also understand this is the way of the future. Like this is where we're at, everybody. Like, you're going to have to get on board and to watch your team or not, and not watch your team. I mean, it just is what it is, unfortunately.
Stymie brought up the blockbuster Tyson fight.
That was a disappointment.
Tyson Paul fight. But again, one-off type deal. And they did that a few months back. They did that the guy climbing the building in Taiwan or wherever it was.
That was weird.
They hired Elle Duncan away from ESPN to be their main host, so like, and it's basically for events like that. Like she was the host of the Netflix MLB opening day game, and like the studio, or I don't know if it was studio or on location, but like the pregame type stuff. So they're going to start doing more stuff, but they're again, they're not going to do full package type deals. They're just looking for a handful of big events that they can scatter throughout the calendar in different sports throughout the year. Father David chiming in on Vince. This just in. Vince admits to being a Michigan fan.
That's harsh, man.
Like that, where it hurts.
That's a harsh statement to make. I say one nice thing about Michigan, and I'm labeled a fan. That hurts. I'll
tell you what. Go ahead.
I was going to say we had college day at school today, which is why I've got the Hillsdale shirt on. Way too many Michigan fans walking around the school for my taste. I'm just going to put it out there. I was a little upset. You're
not that far away from Michigan.
I know, but there's some adults that I've lost a little respect for walking around the building. Just saying. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
So
Jesse and I got accused of being too nice to Brian Kelly yesterday when we were talking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not how we operate on this show. So
I felt like we were fair to Brian Kelly.
Okay.
But we've taken plenty of shots at
absolutely.
Brian Kelly. Like,
were you guys talking about him going back to his roots? Is that what?
Yeah, we were talking about he wants to come back and see Marcus Freeman, and then the AI stuff, and
he can buy a ticket and sit in the stands just like everybody else.
See, I don't know what Chris is saying here. He says, "Come on, Sean." So I don't know. Like, does that mean that I should never be fair to Brian Kelly, or like, I don't know exactly.
Look, I know you guys talked about this yesterday, but I'm cool with him going back to his roots. Just not here. There's other routes you can go to. I mean, there's an indoor facility with his name on it.
Sense, doesn't it? I mean, he's got, as he said, he's got Denbrock here.
That's
true.
He's
got Marcus Freeman here. It's got to be bugging him.
Absolutely.
Marcus Freeman, in one of the quotes, he fully says, we were about building the program. Marcus has taken it to another level. So he knows that Freeman has taken it to another level. I'm sure it's surprised. I'm sure it just killed his ego.
Oh yeah.
When he left.
Oh
yeah. The program didn't just collapse, and Freeman was able to take it. Keep ascending with it.
He's kind of trying to ride the coattails a little bit with the whole thing, and it absolutely burns his britches. He's a competitor just like anybody else. If I was in his shoes, I would feel the same way. If I'm being honest, I would feel very not happy that the way things materialized over the last 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But there, like I said, there's an indoor facility with his name on it down at Grand Valley or up at Grand Valley. He can go there. That's a route. He can go to Central Michigan, I believe. That's a route. There's other places you can explore your routes. You don't have to go to one of the most successful programs in the country.
Do you think Cincinnati would have like
Cincinnati,
like a gate outside of town? Like if you see this man, don't let him in.
Yeah, I feel like Cincinnati fans and Notre Dame fans have that in common. Remember the vitriol of Cincinnati fans when he left Cincinnati? I remember that very well, and it was a very similar situation. So there's no love lost there. I think even more so in Cincinnati than at Notre Dame.
I think so too.
Actually, which is scary.
Yep. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got rapid fire, and we've got a lot to cover in rapid fire. We've managed this week with a lot of like full rapid fire shows. We've managed to keep the content flowing. Thank you, ACC, Cal Turd, USC, whoever you want to thank for providing us the content this week. We'll hear a comment from ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips talking about Notre Dame, some college football puff talk that is coming up Hour number 2 in rapid fire with Vince DeDario, Steyer's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It is hour number 2 of the show, and that means it is rapid fire time along with Vince DeDario, Sean Stiers. We are here until a little bit shy of 7 o'clock. This is one of those weeks where we have full shows every day. Trevor Trowbridge going to be in with me tomorrow because Vince and Jesse are both out bopping and scatting around somewhere.
That's bopping and scatting. It's the NIC boys track meet. So
Okay.
I'm in charge of the start finish line that night. So
Oh, really?
Crown an NIC champ tomorrow. Yep.
Do you have like one of those digital things?
I got a stopwatch.
Just a stopwatch. Okay.
And then but everything is I'm the backup timer basically, and then I get the order of finish of everybody and that kind of stuff. So
All right.
couldn't do it without me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's put a lot on Vince's back is what they do.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
Well, the ACC meetings have been going on this week in Florida. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips did a little press conference today, and he was talking about the college football playoff and Notre Dame, and essentially talking about why he supports the 24-team college football playoff format. And here's what Jim Phillips, ACC Commissioner, had to say.
Consistent in what I've indicated to this group, and that is when you're leaving national championship contending teams, university schools out of the playoff, you don't have the right number. We lived through it, we suffered through it with Florida State when the field was 4, and I know other schools have suffered for it. And I've said this, very directly. Notre Dame was a CFP-worthy team this year. They just were. And you saw what happened to the last team that got invited with Miami and the first team out. So those teams looked alike and all year, and the differential that we felt was head-to-head, but everybody felt that those two universities and schools were similar. So my point is, that's rationale for it. The other rationale I would just say to you is there is so much investment going on in the sport of football and in college athletics. And I'm not necessarily concerned about schools that have traditionally found their way to the college football playoff. I'm talking about those that would have a chance that right now don't have a chance to get into that playoff and have a reasonable chance to win it. And I think that's about access. And if you're going to ask presidents and chancellors and boards to continue to invest in their football programs, it's really important that they have hope, that they have an opportunity at the beginning of the season to get into the playoff. And I think it can also lead to better non-conference scheduling, that you can afford a loss or 2, or maybe even 3. And so we can talk a little bit more about that. And I also think the last thing I say, I think it helps stabilize college athletics, college football to a greater extent.
I mean, there's a lot there from Jim Phillips, ACC Commissioner. Little ambient there, but one of the reporters I think recorded it with his phone. Yeah, and you could hear some of the clicky clack clicking away. I mean, some of the stuff we've been talking about, Vince, including that very last comment about the incentives to continue to schedule better teams when it comes to non-conference games, which is something that we have attached to USC, which also is where USC was, again, feels like they kind of gave Notre Dame an ultimatum that they knew Notre Dame could not, give them by playing the week 0 game to keep the series going this year. And, so that led to the series going away. That buys USC a little bit of time for the potential for expansion. And if they get expansion, just like we've said, there's incentive for USC to jump back in with Notre Dame once again.
Yep, 100%. And as soon as he said it, I was like, yes, somebody. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Commissioner Phillips. But he made a good point. We will get better non-conference games if the field is expanded, and he's absolutely right about that. It is very hard to hear him say how Notre Dame deserved to be in the playoff based on everything that the ACC
The way things went down.
media, or I should say the ACC social media
Yeah.
was just denigrating Notre Dame left and right.
Team A, Team B, and
you can say whatever you want about what actually comes out of his mouth publicly. If you're the commissioner, anything that is tweeted or that's out of your mouth, in my opinion. So he's kind of doing a little bit of a two-step back kind of approach here.
No, I mean, as Father David says here in the chat, my memory isn't what it used to be, but that doesn't quite sound like what he was saying back in November and December. No, it's not. It is very much more, though, aligned, like Pete Bavacqua has talked about the fact that he and Jimmy Phillips, as he likes to call him, Jimmy, have had a lot of great talks, and they met and, kind of patched things up and kumbaya. Apparently, it definitely seems like the ACC and Notre Dame are at least a little bit more in sync with what's going on right now.
100%. And Jim Phillips, for all of his faults, he also does understand the benefit of having the Notre Dame relationship.
Yeah.
Whether that's in all the other sports or whether it's with football, but he understands the benefit. And he is one that is going to nurture that relationship. And I think he was reminded of that relationship about 6 months ago that, hey, man.
Right. We may not be full-fledged, but we're pretty, I don't know if you'd call it in-laws or what, it might not be true blood, but look, the rest of the sports, with the exception of hockey, are in there, so Notre Dame is still a member of the conference. That's why Pete Bavacqua was at those ACC meetings himself this week, because he's an athletic director of a school that's in the ACC, whether it's football or not. And they have an obvious relationship. They still have a scheduling relationship when it comes to football. So there might be plenty of coaches and administrators and athletic directors, like we talked about yesterday, who don't appreciate Notre Dame's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but it is what it is. And Notre Dame, it still is a valuable resource for the ACC when it comes to their standing right now. Notre Dame, if nothing else, from a football standpoint, said this yesterday, Miami would not have gotten into the college football playoff last year if they had not played and beaten Notre Dame
100%.
because of the 2 losses that they sustained in conference play. If they didn't have another playoff caliber team like Notre Dame that they had a win over to help their resume, they would have been left out of the playoff last year. If they would have been playing Florida A&M again last year instead of Notre Dame, they wouldn't have made the playoff because of the 2 losses that they had.
100%. That's absolutely 100% accurate. And, deep down, Miami fans and Miami people understand that. And Jim Phillips understands that as well. And you can do the head-to-head comparison and all the things that you want to do. We're not going to rehash all of that. But the bottom line is playing Notre Dame is beneficial. End of discussion. Right? If you're an ACC, these ACC ADs and the ACC coaches, and, they're all complaining apparently about Notre Dame's relationship and all that. I don't hear them complaining when they're cashing checks.
No.
Coming from the ACC, which are
exactly
so much more lucrative because Notre Dame is part of the conversation.
And again, if the ACC, if administrators in the ACC think that the money that they're getting through their grant of rights TV contract isn't enough, just think of what it would look like if Notre Dame was not attached.
Exactly.
I guarantee it would probably be worth at least $10 million less per season.
Correct.
Getting right now.
Yeah, per season, per school. You know, there's just the value is absolutely there, and they can admit it if they want to, but we all know what the reality is.
What did you think of what Jim Phillips said about the whole, it does cost a lot of money now, if you have any aspirations of being in the college football playoff and contending for anything, you're obviously spending a lot of money on your roster. I mean, the whole rev share thing, everyone's got to spend something, and every team is spending a pretty considerable amount of money to try to stay competitive and get into the playoff. And what he was saying is you've basically, by expanding the playoff, you're basically you're spreading the wealth, I guess, to an extent. You're giving everyone at least some kind of hope that recouping some of your money is a possibility. And I think that, again, when you look at big picture, while more people are getting behind this 24 team format, I think that comes into play as well. Like even if you're not a legit championship contender, at least by getting into the playoff, you're recouping some of the money that you're investing up front to try to be competitive. What do you think of that aspect of it?
I think that's legit. I mean, if you're going to invest in something, whether it's a football team or a business or whatever, what's the ROI, right? What's the return on investment? And nobody wants to back a loser. I mean, again, whether it's business or athletics or whatever, nobody wants to back a loser. And so you need money. And in the NIL space, you need money. And if you did a study on the teams that make it into the college football playoff versus teams that don't, I think it's a safe bet that the teams that are spending more money have a much better shot of making it into the college football playoff. I mean, that's look at it, IU, for example, right? The losingest program in the history of college football. All of a sudden, they want to spend a little money, a lot of money, and they're in. And then they win, right? Now, of course, coaching comes into play and all those things, but there's no mistake. Make no mistake about it. They spent money, right?
Right.
And they spent money and then they won. And look at Texas Tech, for example, not exactly a college football powerhouse. They spent money, they won, and they got in. So it's across the board, right? I mean, outside of maybe the Group of Five team, and I would even say if you took the Group of Five team that made it in and you compare them to other Group of Fives, they're probably spending more money than the other Group of Fives, right?
Yeah.
Not in comparison to the SECs and that kind of
right.
stuff.
But in comparison to the other,
exactly,
teams to the same level, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're investing something.
Absolutely. And with 24 spots, you got a much better chance of getting in.
No one's doing it just because you've got a great coach today. That's just
no, they're not.
Like being a great coach is part of the equation, but you've got to spend a lot of money to keep your roster together. But you've also got to recruit well, and you've also got to do all those other things. But everyone is spending something, and I get it. A lot of people completely think that a 24 team field is too much. I know that. I know Bryan Driskell does not agree with it, and I think that he went off on it. Again, at least to some extent on his show on Irish Breakdown earlier today. Mr. John in the chat, he's been pretty steadfast that he disagrees with it. But according to Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, Pete Pavacqua, Notre Dame athletic director, is behind a 24-team playoff. What do you think about that?
I guess I'm not overly surprised. Access equals potential to win, right? And if you don't get a ticket to the dance, then you're not going to be dancing at the end, right? And if there's a 24-team playoff, you got a much better chance of getting your ticket punched. And so I guess I'm not overly surprised. I also think that with a 24-team playoff, I believe a piece of that is they're getting rid of conference championships.
Right.
How does that not help Notre Dame?
And
right?
that I think is probably what's holding up unanimity right now. Like the SEC feels like they're probably actually the lone holdout, and it's because of the fact a 24-team field, first and foremost, as we've talked about several times on this show, again, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion on it. From a Notre Dame perspective, I think a couple of reasons why Pete Pavacqua is behind it. One, the financial aspect that we just talked about with Jim Phillips, that he talked about, and the rest of the schools. Like everyone's putting money into it. Expanding the playoffs guarantees that more teams get a chance to at least recoup part of that money. And the more that you keep winning, the more windfall that you get back. And if you're Notre Dame, because you're independent, you get to keep all of that if you keep winning. So there's a big financial incentive for Notre Dame, if the field does expand to 24. And the other side of that, like we talked about, is scheduling. If 24 teams can get into the college football playoff, there is much less risk for USC or for anyone else to continue to schedule Notre Dame down the road. And let's face it. I mean, I don't think Lincoln Riley was very shy about it. That's part of why USC is not a big part of why USC is not playing Notre Dame right now. You can talk about all this other crap, but it comes down to that. Lincoln Riley wants a chance to get into the playoff, and he didn't think that he could do it by keeping Notre Dame on the schedule.
Well, everybody's given their opinion about the 2014 playoff in the chat, and look, there's a lot of easy answers to a lot of those questions. With 24 teams, it's not going to end any later. You just move things up a little bit, and you get rid of conference championship games. The timeline is still the same, of course. And does it minimize the regular season? That's the big one, right? I don't think it does, because now you're going to have more marquee games, and I'll die on that hill.
Right. And that's, again, like we're getting, the same stuff about, and again, Driskell is anti 2014 field. And I know that he, like he's willing to die on that hill. And a lot of people, a majority of the people who are watching our show in the YouTube chat are watching Bryan's, so they've gotten his take on this whole thing. I know that he is anti 2014 field because, sanctity of the regular season and all these different things. But as you were saying there, Vincent, I didn't mean to cut you up, but you're going to get better matchups in the regular season,
better games,
if you have an expanded field. So we can talk about, minimizing the regular season, but if you're going to get fewer Power 4 teams playing fewer group of 6, and in exchange, if you're getting less of USC playing San Jose State and Fresno State and more of USC playing Notre Dame, isn't that what you want?
Right.
Like, don't you want more of that in the regular season? So I don't think that you're making the regular season worse, and you're also guaranteeing that in November, I don't even know what the multiplier would be, but 10 or 20 times the games that would typically mean something in November are going to mean something if you have a bigger playoff field.
100%. It's going to make November awesome, but it also makes early September awesome, because I think you're going to have better matchups, and you're going to have more games that matter in November. I couldn't agree more. I haven't heard Bryan's specific rant. He has he's very persuasive usually with his argument. And I tend to find myself following whatever he had to say about an argument. But I feel pretty good about this one. I feel pretty good about this one. Because conference championship games are a gigantic waste of time, and coaches don't even want to play in them anymore.
Right. And that's
get rid of them.
We started with conference championship games, and then we talked about all this other stuff. But that apparently is the biggest sticking point for the SEC right now, because the SEC's championship game is such a moneymaker in comparison to the others. The Big Ten's is as well, but the SEC championship game apparently is valued between $80 million and $100 million. That's just for the SEC's conference championship game. So whatever TV revenue that an expanded college football playoff would bring, the SEC has to, they're not just going to give away $80 million to $100 million. They've got to, whatever this new contract ends up being, they've got to get their money back in this whole thing. So that's why that is such a sticking point for the SEC right now. They want 16, whereas everybody else is pushing for 24, because 24 again gets, part of the plan is you'd get rid of the conference championship games. But the SEC is not just going to walk away from that kind of money to do it.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to come down to the money. I mean, let's be honest, right? It's going to come down to the money. And I just think that there's going to be so much money, and you're not going to be guaranteed slots. I think that's silly, right? But the SEC is going to get a ton of teams in. The Big Ten is going to get a ton of teams in. They're going to make their money.
And that's how does it offset between, apparently a 12-team field currently generates about $1.3 billion a year. And there are 11 total games in the 12-team format. So if you go to 24, it would add 12 games. But ESPN, because of the contract, would own up to 13 games, which means there would be 10 new games in a 24-team field that would be up for grabs, up for bid by the TV network. So 10 new games, So again, it's like how much money are they able to make on, we were talking about Netflix earlier. I'm sure Netflix would go in and want to drop a pretty good amount of money to get of those games, again, like when you go back to the event thing. But then the other thing is, it's not that the TV revenue isn't your sole source of revenue, because the first two rounds, the way they've, put this pitch together for the 2014 field, are all going to be on campus sites. And that a lot of SEC schools are going to be hosting some of those games. So, there's still
tons of money to
still
be
that
made there.
extra revenue that's going to be tied into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that the proposal is a perfect proposal as it sits, right? I mean, on-campus games are great. Don't get me wrong. I will never forget the IU Notre Dame game when it was on campus here. I mean, it was unbelievable, right? It was so great. But it's also an opportunity, in my opinion, to use some of these other bowl sites because these bowl games are ridiculous right now. Kids are opting out. You got all these different things. So use some of these secondary bowl sites, into the playoff, that kind of a thing. What that looks like, I don't know. But that would be my suggestion, not necessarily all the way through. But, going on the road to an NFL stadium or whatever is also not a bad thing to do.
DJ says, but it's not a guarantee that USC will schedule better teams. I mean, it's not a guarantee that anyone will.
Right. But I think overall they will.
If you're playing the numbers, if you're playing the odds,
right,
there is a greater chance that teams are going to be willing to schedule, continue to schedule better non-conference games.
Right.
The bigger the field is, the better, the greater the chance that teams are going to be willing to do that. And I mean, USC and Notre Dame are talking right now. It's
because the 2014 playoff is being talked about.
Right.
I'm telling you, that's part of it.
Right. They're in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is pushing for the 2014 field. It's definitely part of it.
Yep. And USC realizes they can make a bunch of money and it's not going to hurt them in the playoff talk like that. It's not hard to understand, really. Follow the money. It's always about that. Follow the money, follow the opportunity.
There you go. There you go. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're bringing back our favorite game. The offseason is here, and that means it's time for Guess the Season Over-Under Win Total. And Vince and I are going to guess it. I'm not going to tell you because I don't want people spoiling it in the chat on the off chance that I say it and then somebody goes and looks it up. So we're going to guess the over-under season win total for a team today coming up next. It's a fun little game that we like to do, and we are going to do that with more things coming up as well. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and Rapid Fire with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, along with Vince DeDario, who's out at Four Winds Field tonight. I'm Sean Stiers. No, he's not there for a South Bend Cubs game. It is Penn and New Prairie SEC or SEC NIC championship on the line.
Yes, the JV game looks like it's wrapping up here. I think they're in the bottom of the last inning, and varsity will be taking the field here momentarily. So it's for the title, at least control of the conference. There's still some games to go, obviously.
I like how we call this segment rapid fire, and we've got like 15 minutes left in the show, and we've talked about one topic. So
that's what we do.
Very rapidly. We did not rapidly do anything.
It's not really a thing we do. We don't do anything rapidly.
No.
So that's okay, though.
Comprehensive fire? I don't know exactly.
I have to come up with a different name when it's you and me.
I know. So, as I said, we are bringing back our favorite little off-season game, and it is called Guess the Season Over-Under Win Total. We pick a different team, not every day, but we mix them in. Now that the off-season is here, we pick a team, we take a look at their schedule for the 2026 football season, and then we go to before we go to FanDuel, we guess what their over-under win total is going to be. Then we go to FanDuel and see what the official listing is. DJ says only one team. Well, there's a lot of days between now and the training camp starts.
Yes.
So
only one team
out
today. Only one team today. Yes.
One team a day. That's right. And today's team is the University of Southern California Trojans. We are going to guess the over-under season win total for them. So if you're watching in YouTube, and I'm going to blank it out just to make sure that nobody cheats here, you can guess what you think their win total is going to be, but please don't look it up and post it in there.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Because we are literally, neither one of us is, they posted these like 2 months ago, I think, maybe something like that. And I remember, like there were initial tweets and stuff like that, for different teams, what their win totals were. And I wanted to make sure that we started this with enough room that we kind of blank that out of our mind, so we come into this with a fresh slate so that we can have fun doing it. So
I don't remember any of them except Notre Dame. So.
I don't either. I don't. And honestly, I could probably take a pretty good guess at what Notre Dame's is. I know it's pretty high this year, but I don't know exactly what it is off the top of my head. So let's go through USC's schedule.
Okay.
And then we will come back and we will guess what their official FanDuel over-under win total is right now for the season. So they start with San Jose State, week 0, by the way.
Hilarious, by the way, yeah.
And then they play Fresno State. Mm-hmm. And then it's on to Louisiana. Those are all 3 home games. I say on to Louisiana, but those are all 3 home games. And then their first road game, they go cross-country to Rutgers. Open Big Ten play, September 19th. They follow that with a home game against Oregon, a home game against Washington. They are at Penn State, October 10th. Then they are at Wisconsin, October 24th, a bye week, October 17th. Halloween, they host Ohio State. Interesting game on Halloween, October 31st. 2 weeks later, they've got a bye after Ohio State. 2 weeks later, they go to Indiana. They host Maryland on November 21st, and they end the regular season in the Rose Bowl against the only rival on their schedule, UCLA. So there are USC's 12 games.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think their over-under season win total is, Vince?
So as I look at the schedule, I see 7 wins guaranteed, right? I see 7 guaranteed wins, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Okay. 7 games they should win. I'll say it that way.
San Jose State, Fresno State, Louisiana, Rutgers, UCLA, Maryland. There's 6. Wisconsin, that's 7.
Yeah. Well, and I have UCLA. So what am I missing?
I said UCLA.
Oh, you did say okay. So if you said UCLA, then we're good. Because they play 5 ranked teams.
Right.
Okay. Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Ohio State, and IU. So they play 5 ranked teams. I think those are 5 toss-up type games, and no guarantees there. So 7 is the number I think that they're guaranteed to win. You figure you got 5 type games. They host some of those, obviously, and they go on the road for some. So they host more than they go on the road, though, which is an interesting piece of this.
It is
the big games anyway.
I mean,
right?
the fact that they've got Oregon, Washington, and Ohio State all
at home. Yeah. So I think that says something. So my gut was 8.5, but I'm gonna go 9.5 as my number, and that might be high, but I feel like 9.5 is the number because I think they could win 2 of those 5, right? But do they get that third? I think that's the question as to where this number is. So that's why I'm going 9.5.
Well, that's the thing. How good are they really? Are they actually going
exactly?
Are they actually going to beat a good team?
Right.
I mean,
right.
that's literally the question for them, because like you look, they lost to Illinois last year. Now, they beat Michigan. They lost to Oregon. They obviously lost to Notre Dame last year. And like, those were their toughest games. They did beat Iowa. How good is Iowa? But, again, like we go round and round about how actually tough their schedule is year in and year out, and how tough any Big Ten schedule is year in and year out. And my gut instinct is the same as yours, 8.5. And that's like, I'm wondering, do I bump up though?
I know.
I think Vegas, it's a good point. That their 3 of their toughest games are home games. I still say don't overlook Penn State, the fact that they have to go to Penn State as well, and the fact that they have to go to Indiana this year. Those are a couple of tough road games. I'm going to go 8.5. That's going to be my number.
A gut is usually the way to go. I think I may be overthinking it. I may be giving them more credit than they deserve. The whole championship window and all this other nonsense. 9.5 may be high here. I'm going to stick with 9.5 because, look, if USC is a 10-win season, they have a shot of making the playoff. I think we can agree on that, right? I mean, if they win 10 games, they're going to be in the conversation. If they win 9, I doubt it. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so you are sticking at 9.5, right?
Yep.
I'm going with 8.5. All right, I've got the app, FanDuel app. Have not opened it yet. I'm getting ready to open it for USC, and the number is. Can you see it? Is it too blurry? 8.5.
I knew it.
Trust your gut, Vince.
See, it happens to me every time.
Trust your gut.
It happens every single time.
And the over is plus 110. The under is minus 134. So that says that Vegas doesn't even,
they don't even think they're going to get to 8.
They're going to get, yeah. Yep.
And they're probably right, is the thing, which is what makes it even more ridiculous to say that they're in a championship window. I'll just say that.
Yep. So there you go. Our first guess the over-under season win total for the season. USC 8.5.
Well done.
Is their number.
You nailed it. And somebody in there said, Salty said they will drop at least one gimme game. There is that possibility, by the way. Traveling out to the East Coast twice. Apparently, according to coaches, that really is a draining situation.
Yes.
So I mean, they could lose to Penn State. They could lose to Rutgers. But they could drop one of those gimme games. That's definitely a possibility. They could lose to UCLA, a rivalry game. Maybe they don't have much to play for at the end of the season. You know what I mean? That's definitely a possibility. So 8.5 is absolutely the right pick. So well done, sir.
Real rough, all that travel. Like, remember Notre Dame went to San Diego to play Navy and then went to New York City.
Yeah.
And, at Yankee Stadium against Syracuse, and then had a game in Chicago and another home game, and then went back to LA to beat USC to close out the season.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's a plane ride, guys. Like, you'll be okay. They're not. It's not
a chartered.
Correct.
Ride, by the way,
it's not 1923 where you're getting on a train for like 2 days to get out to California. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Casey says he does give Lanning credit for not complaining about travel. That is something that you haven't heard.
He doesn't, not yet anyway. Give it time.
All it's going to take is a loss or two, and
correct.
You'll start hearing that. Man,
that's exactly right.
Those trips out to Maryland. Yeah,
it's tough.
SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey had an interesting comment this week about his conference not playing games on Fridays. This whole Friday thing has become a topic of conversation. He says, quote, "For everybody that thinks we just grab money, we could grab money by putting games on different nights of the week," end quote. Does it kind of feel like a shot at the other three Power Four conferences by saying that?
I said earlier that I don't generally agree with Jim Phillips on a whole lot. I really don't agree with Craig Sankey a whole lot. I do in this one, and I'm here for it, man. Throw that shade at those Friday night games, man. Like that.
Seriously.
I'm here for it. I am absolutely here for it. At least he understands football's for Saturdays. College football is for Saturdays. And the SEC is a lot of things, but they are obsessed with tradition. And so I'm okay with that.
They also have the richest TV contract of any of them.
They have that too.
So, they do have that going for them.
They do. And that contract hopefully says you can only play on Saturdays.
I mean, it's let's be honest. The Big Ten is the only conference playing games on Friday nights that really doesn't need to be playing games on Friday nights. But
that's very true.
Fox obviously likes to put some games there. I guess I've got a problem with, like, especially if you're going to play them on Friday night, like, is FS1, is it really worth being on FS1 to play a Friday night game? Like,
yeah, seriously.
Like, at least have it be on the big Fox,
Because, like, I think the networks, they still hold Friday nights, like they have stuff on Friday nights, right? I mean, that's still a thing, I think.
Do they? I don't know what they've got on Friday nights anymore.
That's the thing. I don't really know because I can't remember the last time I watched a live TV program. I just record them all and watch them when I have time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm so spoiled, like commercials. I don't sit through commercials. I fast forward through commercials. Like, I'm that guy now. So I don't know what's on Friday nights on these regular stations.
Okay, so Chris says he doesn't gamble. He's asking what makes a half victory. Okay, so the number is 8.5 because you can't set it. You can't set an over/under at just 8 because if you win exactly 8 games or 9 games
push.
or whatever it happens to be, yeah, it's a push, and then Vegas doesn't win, you don't win. Vegas has to refund the money. So you set it at 8.5 because it has to either be over or under. There's no push in that case. So that's why like Vegas is always going to set their lines, like when it comes to the win totals, an 8.5, a 7.5, whatever it happens to be, because whatever it ends up,
you're either a winner or a loser
or an under. Right.
Nobody likes a push. Nobody likes a tie. It's why we don't like soccer. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, the whole Friday night thing, I'm not as dead set as you, as someone who's not out at high school games anymore, doesn't have, a kid in school anymore. Like I don't mind being home on a Friday night when I've got nothing else on, and I'll flip over to a college football game. So
I get that. I totally get that. You and I are in a different, different profession. Number one, like I don't have any kid playing high school football anymore either. But my job tells me I have to be at high school football games.
Correct.
So, but that's what Friday nights are. And it's been that way for me for a really long time. I was calling games while I was coaching, and then I was calling games. Then I was watching my kid. Like I've been doing Friday night football for 20 years. Like that's and more if you count as a player, right?
Yeah.
So like it just Friday nights are for high school. Like it's just the way it is. It's ingrained in my head.
DJ says Friday is where they send failing shows to die. I mean, not even that, that's definitely kind of how it was. I don't even know if that's the case anymore because there's so little original programming even on network TV
That's fair.
anymore. Like when I was little anyway, All in the Family was on Saturday nights. Like, and that was like first run stuff. You don't say anything first run that has a chance of doing anything on Fridays or Saturdays anymore. But with all these streamers, it's like, I don't even know if anyone has that philosophy. Speaking of like the TV stuff, we're getting a little bit of a slow trickle of some of these games, like from Fox in terms of college games now. Obviously, the NFL schedule comes out tomorrow, but they do, like Fox, NBC, CBS, they do a draft of what games who gets to carry during the season. When it comes to Big 10, Big 12, and stuff like that. Like the Ohio State-Michigan game is typically the top pick in the TV draft every year. Would you watch a live draft of who gets what games to televise if they televised it?
I would not watch a TV version of that draft. What I would do is I would love to be in the war room or whatever as they were doing it. Like that kind of a thing. It wouldn't keep my attention watching it on TV.
If they put on, because especially if it's going to take hours to do it.
Yeah.
If they put on a condensed version, like a 1 hour special on on FS1 or, wherever it happens to be, some streamer, like have you seen any of the stuff that they were doing, like you were saying, War Room, like they've shown some of the War Room moments from during the draft and stuff like that, like the NFL draft a couple of weeks ago. If they put together like a 1 hour special, I would definitely watch. I think it would be really interesting to hear
a special. Yeah, I get that.
Like the executives mic'd up and
yes.
Like them talking about what game, like, okay, here are our possibilities and like what the strategies are behind it. I think it would be interesting to see, like how these networks are making their decisions on which they want.
That's like I said, I've said this on this show before. One of my bucket list items would be to be in the war room for the NFL draft. You know what I mean? Similar idea for me.
Sure. I agree. All right. Well, that's going to do it. We're going to let Vince get out and finish his job supervising those youngins doing their high school broadcast out there at Four Winds Field tonight. Stay warm. I guess you're in the press box, so you don't have to worry about that. Mailbag Day tomorrow. Woo. Mailbag Day. The new Mailbag Day is Thursdays now. So be here with your Notre Dame football questions and other questions on tomorrow's show. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I will talk to you later, sir.
All right. See you Friday.
Sounds good. That's going to do it for us tonight. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.